Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this very special OpenText webinar, Drive Breakthrough Customer Engagement in 2024. My name is Janet de Guzman, and I'll be your host for today's session. As Senior Director of Product Marketing at OpenText, I lead a global team responsible for the development and implementation of messaging, positioning, and go-to-market strategies for our digital experience solutions. So far, over my 20-plus year career, I've enjoyed working in several domains, including information management, business development, management consulting, and industry marketing. And it's a pleasure to be with you all today. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. You'll notice on your console window, there are multiple engagement windows. All the windows are movable and resizable, so feel free to move them around and get the most out of your desktop space. You can expand your slide area or maximize it to full screen by clicking on the arrows in the top right-hand corner. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar, which you can do by submitting through the Ask a Question box. We'll have a live Q&A session at the end of the webinar where we'll go through these questions. Please know we do capture all of your questions, so if we run out of time, we'll answer them via email later on. For the best viewing experience, we encourage you to use a high-speed and stable internet connection and close any programs or browser sessions running in the background that could cause issues. Events are bandwidth intensive, so closing any unnecessary browser tabs and logging off VPN will help you conserve your bandwidth. If your slides are behind, pushing F5 on your keyboard will refresh the page. You can find additional answers to common technical issues in the help tool at the bottom of your screen. A recording of the event will be available after the webinar concludes and can be accessed using the same audience link that we sent to you earlier. Now that housekeeping is out of the way, it's my pleasure to introduce our esteemed experts for today. First, a big welcome to IDC Research Vice President for Digital Experience Strategies, Marcy Maddox. Marcy's core research coverage includes creative tools, web content management systems, customer communications, digital asset management, and video platform solutions. Leveraging 18 years in content and experience applications, Marcy analyzes the impact that new technology entrants like AI and mobile have on the way organizations create and deliver persuasive content to improve customer lifetime value and user interaction. She conducts research on a worldwide scale, including market sizing, forecasting, ROI models, case studies, and thought leadership projects. We're really delighted to partner with Marcy Maddox on today's webinar. Also joining us today is Salman Rizvi, Regional Vice President, Solution Consulting at OpenText. Salman brings over 2 decades of experience in the experience pillar, specializing in digital transformations. He leads a team of global pre-sales digital experience consultants, but as our experience business evangelist at OpenText, Salman wears multiple hats, including chief architect and value engineer, as well as provides strategic leadership in professional services. His expertise lies in leveraging technology to craft seamless, impactful experiences, empowering organizations to thrive in the digital age. Today, our speakers will be discussing how organizations can drive breakthrough customer engagement in 2024 and beyond. With that, Marcy, let's get started.
Great, thank you, Janet. And nice to be talking to you out in the audience today. So as you can see here that Salman and I are going to be talking about current trends, data and examples, and different support cases that you'll be able to use for planning in 2025 and beyond. We're going to be discussing those 5 critical decision points that you might be facing when it comes to your customer's digital experience. We're going to delve into growing focus on customer success for profitability and how data and AI can personalize those experiences. You're going to discover how to extend and optimize an omni-channel experience, including self-service and emerging technologies like RCS messaging. And then we'll explore the trends in personalization and emphasizing its continued importance in our customer engagements. And then finally, we'll discuss the funding innovations funding your innovations and the benefits that you get from creating a holistic customer experience. So let me start first with just a background in where we are in the market today. Customer experience has been around, and it's been a top key area for our C-suites today. And the idea is that we're going to be delivering this sort of measurable ROI across functions in the front office, like marketing and sales, but also after service, and where we're going to have loyalty and rewards coming back to an additional way to improve that revenue with our customers. Now, the digital services market will thrive with video and audio and social media. And we're going to see this emerging areas like digital wellness or maybe reshaping consumer experiences. In fact, by 2024, we estimate that the consumers are projected to spend over $1 trillion annually on digital goods and services, primarily accessed through mobile devices, apps, and online through social media. And so therefore, organizations are increasingly having to look at the customer value through this lens of profitability and the cost that it's going to take to acquire and retain these satisfied customers. IDC surveys found that for every dollar that an organization has invested in improving the customer experience, we've seen 61% earn more than 5 times that amount back through the customer's experience and added products and services throughout their lifetime. Now, I offer this over to Solomon, because does this resonate with what you're also seeing in your markets and what you're selling your products to your clients?
Yeah, Marcy. Actually, we're seeing our customers trying to take their traditional acquisition model, where it's becoming a lot more competitive in that space. And just like you said, trying to figure out how they can extend their customer lifetime value. And that evolution of taking their customer retention and support programs and transitioning them to customer success, which is really flipping it from a cost center model into a profit center. And how they're doing that is actually trying to be less reactive and more proactive. And so being considerate of the overall journey post-sale. And when they do that, it's not just about the experience anymore. It's about building trust and the relationship over time. And that relationship can foster actually something very powerful, which is advocacy. And that's something that we're trying to pitch as thought leadership at OpenText, because once you have advocacy, that word of mouth, and I feel like we go in cycles in industries, and word of mouth is now going to be paramount, especially in the age of AI, to be able to set yourself apart moving forward.
Yeah, I love that you brought out the relationship, because the relationship doesn't happen in just one area of the business. It has to be connected across every different department, because as your customers, and whatever industry you're in, if it's your patients or it's your members or others, they're going to be in different stages of interaction with you. And so different departments need to all be connected. In fact, the demand for personalized and tailored communications through each of those stages is at an all-time high. And we find that despite the progress that we're making in connecting the customer journey from a process workflow perspective, there's still that need to have proactive communications that are up to date, has data available, has insights available, and it's driving value through that relationship. Because just because you buy a product, you're not done in one, right? We've got to continue to keep talking to them about what might be going on in their lives. And so what we found at IDC is that the role of communication still remains at the core of what all humans do. And so companies are realizing that good customer communication is key to success. Now, traditionally, you might have interacted with your customers through a perception of your brand, through emails, or maybe even through social media. But a clear, helpful communication throughout the journey helps to build that trust that Solomon, you were just talking about, and it keeps them coming back. And so not only are we looking for digital options, we also have to think about how companies are reaching out in the physical world as well to drive back the information that they're interacting with us, to drive over time a prioritization of that customer's interaction that's going to necessitate a platform that will help to support us. So going forward, we see digital communications have surged, as you see here on the slide, that with nearly half the organizations are increasing their interactions through IT with support and through marketing, and in the past year in other areas of the business. But as we look to communications to focus and align operational tasks with customer-centric goals, we want to keep in mind personalization. And that might mean we have new video or new imagery, very rich text communications happening on the back end. But we can't forget that as organizations are moving through digital transformation, and a majority we have found have already taken that first step. We're not going to get away from paper and manual processes. That's just not going to happen. But we can make most of it automated and use that information in a digital world to help augment our physical world. So as you see me talking about this idea of relationships and data and insights and processes, how would you define this through your own interactions, Solomon?
Yeah, with the customers, we really like to take them back and say, where are your gaps? What are the challenges today to get to that frictionless experience for your customers? And the big one is, of course, it's a moving target. The expectation, even as consumers, right? We're changing our expectations overnight sometimes. And now, before, when you could wait till 9 a.m. to get service, it's not enough. You want self-service. You want to be able to get help right away, whatever that task may be. Now, in terms of trying to put it all together, the other gap is silos. And not just from a systems perspective, but you have multiple stakeholders, different KPIs, and the organizational structure really shouldn't be the customer's headache to navigate. And you have to try to figure out how you can still unify all these different systems and functions and entities under your brand as one. And that's a big challenge. And then last but not least, the number of channels and touch points, there's many that are just producing over and over and over again. And on top of that, we can't ignore the generational differences and the preferences, because the demographic may seem outdated, but a lot of the outdated demographic may carry the wallet. I mean, so that's the thing where you can't ignore which way you're going. So it's very, very cognizant for our customers to recognize what all these gaps are before we can start moving towards a solution.
Great, thanks. So I just find it interesting that you're starting to give some spoilers to our information later, Solomon, around generational differences. But it's good to know, right? As you see here, I'll go into some of the data that supports these trends. One is that the top decision criteria that we're finding today for investment in customer experience technology is around that customer service and support. Because as you said, right, we're not all in an 8 to 5, 10 to 4 type of world. We are in an always on world that we have to be able to provide that self-service in real time. And so digital leaders are looking at how do we infuse data and AI for automation, but there's also still core tenets of how the customer experience is being built out. And as we see with economic uncertainty right now in 2024, there's been changes in organizational structures. At the bottom, we're still trying to drive our business forward, even with the financial climate being difficult in 2023, and having those very key decisions and priorities to take us from 2024 into 2025 and beyond. And so we want to turn to our customer base. We want to build loyalty and expand opportunities for those that we know already have invested in our products and services, and tie that back to our goals that are experience-led and provide value both to the organization and to the end consumer. And a lot of times we're putting more emphasis on KPIs that are measuring customer retention and customer lifetime value. But we also have to control those costs when we move into an area for growth, and looking at predictions that we have around customer experience is going to drive customer satisfaction. And in fact, when we look at the retention amounts that Global 2000 companies are looking for, they're going to base and design their new features on primarily based service and information that they've gathered through their customers and the usage of those products to drive additional profitability, choosing the right product enhancements, the right new digital services to deploy. And it all comes back to that value. When we think about the customer's success, it's going to become a revenue generator for these organizations. And that's why we need to consider the end users actually creating their own experiences, their own journey. If you're going to be going online at midnight, you're going to expect certain amount of influence in how is it delivered? How do I find the information? Transparency. There's quite a lot going on where we see Gen AI having an opportunity to empower us and our customers through this next level.
Could not agree with you more on that front, Marcy, with respect to Gen AI and its impact. And I don't suppose we could get through a discussion about game changers without talking about AI.
That is very true. It is top of mind for a lot of organizations. And so we're not going to belabor this here because you're all in a state of learning. You're all trying to figure out, well, how do I prioritize from a cost savings measure to automation to thinking about legal issues that are going on, the ROI to this investment. We are finding that half of organizations have an AI strategy and a roadmap in place with their C-suite today. And they're going to be updating that roadmap to incorporate new Gen AI use cases. And because of the broad impact, literally hundreds of use cases are being considered and trialed, we found through 2023 and as we go into 2024. But the question that needs to be asked is how much or will Gen AI transform my industry? Do we expect it to really have an impact on us? And the answer is yes. Yes, we will. IT industry leaders are believing that Gen AI has already disrupted their business and see a significant change in the next 18 months. And according to our surveys, we're finding areas of life sciences, healthcare, professional service, even media and entertainment industries, they're going to be the most likely disrupted because they're having complex workflow and different controls that AI can take, especially if you think about Gen AI in a private learning model and not necessarily one that's in the public. We are seeing a shift to trialing this area. And then we want to see where AI is going to take it from a services perspective as well, including it inside applications and embedding it for general users to have access to, but then also tailored very highly to a specific task or process, which I believe, Solomon, you have some products that are handling this today already.
That's right. And how OpenText is preparing our customers for their AI initiatives is with our own initiative, actually. We've packaged and centralized a suite of AI capabilities, which we're calling OpenText Experience Aviator. And this will really allow customers to truly reimagine their work. Their productivity will increase and it will unlock exponential advantage for flawless customer experience and success through the use of generative AI, image AI, content analysis, and it just continues on and while protecting your corporate IP. And it also ensures that your brand's voice meets all your legal, governance, and compliance standards. This truly is game-changing. You could literally turn weeks or months of efforts into days and even minutes of work. One example that we've had a little while back with this is it's actually one of those popular televised TV retailers. And they came to us and gave us a little bit of a challenge. They had a pair of jeans that were selling like hotcakes, but continuously got returned. It was their highest return rate, and they couldn't figure it out. Now they had their contact center channels, email channels, all these support channels. It took them about 6 to 7 months in order to determine what that root cause was. So they gave that challenge to our AI element, and we took all that data, and within 24 hours, we came to the same conclusion, which was it was a dye in the jeans that was causing them to shrink. So nothing wrong with the style of the product, but it was more what was happening post-sale and how they were treating the product. And right away, they were able to mitigate that. So the ROI, just with a little bit of analysis and the right elements of AI, can truly change the game.
Yeah. That's a great story. I'll have to remember that one. I thought for sure it was going to be something around the dye was bleeding on someone or something, but very, very interesting. And it's a good point, right? Different industries are going to be adopting Gen AI or AI analysis, as you just described, in various factors. There's also the way you communicate back out through a customer support system, whether it's through a knowledge base or direct communication. And as you can see here, we do find that different industries are on different trajectories, whether it's in the very beginning in an early stage using only phone or an email way of connecting with them, or as we see a lot of times in our government and public sectors, or on the other end where it's a more optimized engagement where you're providing product information at the same time through social media, through updates through the app, maybe even through the seller or distributor where that particular product might be coming from. And so we do see as we move through an AI story that we will have specific prioritized use cases. Many companies that we're talking to today are finding ways to mitigate any risk in their use of AI as they move forward. There are definitely some that are out there taking on the risk and putting it out there. But for mostly, we're looking at, for example, personalization. So personalized learning, where Gen AI can create maybe a custom learned material for a student or adapts to their learning pace and adjusts the content appropriately. We also see personalization in product recommendations. Now, we've been using AI-based recommendations for quite a while, but now we can think about imagining a virtual shopping assistant who can look at those particular types of returns and select maybe a different product that might have better ratings and reviews or highlighting personal discounts or leading to other customer satisfaction identifiers or data. And lastly, we've also looked in the manufacturing space at predictive maintenance. And now Gen AI can analyze all of that sensor data that's coming from the machines and predict when it might break down, monitor the equipment, and then in real time, identify that issue and trigger a maintenance alert to the particular user. So all of these are going to come to a competitive advantage for you in your different industries. And it does depend on having that data available to you. And as you're applying them to these processes, I think, Solomon, you've also got a few examples that you might be able to share as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We talked about the silos and the aspects of governance and ensuring there's regulatory and compliance. Once we've been able to solve that, and OpenText has taken those approaches with Aviator, like we discussed, and making sure that we've addressed all those hurdles and putting that together, then we hear stories that we're trying to solve. So one use case was a CMO of a bank, and she had her head in her hands, telling us that she herself purchased a home and got a mortgage like everybody else does, but her own bank that she's the CMO for sent her out some communications and marketing material as an offer for a new mortgage rate that she can take advantage of. And of course, the amount of waste, first of all, that's sending that communication out. On top of that, training the attention span of your customer base to now ignore you, it becomes critical on how you're leveraging your data. If they had done that, and this was a digital bank on top of that, so it makes it 3 times worse, we would have seen a lot better results, right? And on top of that, the other avenue, right, that's the customer side. The employee side of it, we were talking to a customer, and as they're building and generating, we're talking about generating content, it takes about 2 years, actually, they told us, to train someone to be compliant in the voice and the messaging and the culture of the product.
I think you're right on, spot on. Sentiment is a key area in which we've seen Gen AI be able to handle. In fact, 2/3 of organizations are already using multiple channels for customer engagement. The top area for Gen AI are these customer service apps, chatbots and other ways to communicate more effectively and with more empathy as well. And we do see, as you were mentioning, employee-facing apps are also another successful area for productivity gains. And we can also optimize the supply chain, going back to your jeans example, where we can analyze that data and predict that demand and suggest maybe other inventory levels that come out. So as we look through a prediction moving forward, what's going to be most top of mind? Well, we see that the improved ability to connect data and processes across the business was the number one factor when organizations were looking at Gen AI. And we predict that by 2026, 45% of the Global 2000 will look at real-time AI mined data to direct their interactions and the service and support experiences that they're providing. But even further, we're going to look at something around customer data platforms. So how we're housing it in a single location and how that data can be used to activate those real-time personalized experiences tied back to that real-time data AI mining to then bring 4 times engagement gains by the end of 2026. So these are not small increments that we could make. These have huge impacts to profitability and our revenue streams coming from customers. As we look forward to these predictions, I think, Janet, you've seen some of this as well, right?
Absolutely. You and Solomon talk about how important personalization is and omni-channel and being in the right place at the right time. Obviously, key to that. We know that omni-channel strategies improve customer retention significantly. So with that in mind, Marcy, what should organizations be doing to take omni-channel to the next level?
Yeah, so as we have in our third trigger point here, which is authenticity tied to the omni-channel and emerging channels, as we do see customer behavior changing from, as we mentioned earlier, generational issues that come into the organization who may not be handling it. And so as you're starting to drive more hyper personalization that's driven through omni-channel, we see that we don't necessarily know when or where a customer is going to want to interact with us. So we have to be ready for it across the board because there is no predictability to that. Whether it's a mobile app or conversational interfaces with RCS, it's the convenience factor that brings this interactive experience to life. But omni-channel is not available without omni-data behind it. That's sharing it across departments and having it in a place that you can then store it and retrieve it more effectively. And Gen AI tasks that are automating our processes are very dependent on this when you're trying to build hyper-personalized examples. So, Solomon, does this match what you're also seeing in your omni-channel investments that your clients are making?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing to add on top of that would be that we're seeing that it's really multi-channel, not true omni-channel. And what I mean by that is each customer has been great at focusing at each different touch point, but again, it's not about connecting it together and looking at it from a holistic journey. We really feel that the next level of experience is really tied to the overall customer journey and their success in that journey.
Yeah, and so as you think about the data that we're going to show for this particular trend, personalization, like you were just talking about, within the journey, my moment in time, what is going on with me and working with your product or services today. And we found that in looking at how organizations are interacting in social media, for example, employees are spending on average of 17 hours a week on social media. Students are spending 22 hours. So this is a clear indication that we get our information from all sorts of areas. And that personalization is driven by enterprises wanting to leverage AI and big data for these customer experiences. And we also see customers are adopting these digital channels more and more for other activities. Millennials are opening online accounts twice as fast as older generations, with a higher percentage of banking customers using self-service tools before they contact a person. But it's also coming back to forging in those trusted relationships with these digital interactions. And we do find that customers expect that personalization, but they also expect trust and authenticity in what they're reading and how they're interacting. And with more people coming online, and businesses are needing to scale their content creation, their digital services, personalization is going to rely on influencing that customer through our brand, through the brand awareness and the loyalty that our customers have with it. And so we do see that trust fuels this digital economy. When you have false information, it's going to erode that trust and discourage customers from buying more products or adjacent products or services. And IDC found that the data security, privacy, accessibility, and transparency to information is crucial to building that trust and that business success. However, many organizations are still struggling with a lack of trust due to data that's hindering them, and they're not able to get started on their AI initiatives because they're not bringing it out. Which is why we then look at the prediction here around the rise in digital self-service is going to be highly dependent on those communications and supporting that dynamic nature, so that when you look for this balance between those shifting customer experiences across the different journey and the different types of devices that they might be on, those additional solutions need to be backed up by a platform that's in the cloud and can scale, and it's looking at the information that's provided through chat or AI. And as you see here, one of our survey questions we asked was, does the AI function completely address your issue without human intervention? And 31% say, yeah, more than half of the time I'm able to get my answer very quickly and move on. 45 or 43% say, yeah, most of the time, 20 to 50% I will. But 1%, less than 1% say they never need it, which what this means is that you're always going to have a human in the loop at some point or in that stage of interaction. And so from that, Janet, how do you find that this also resonates in your business?
We're hearing this too, Marcy, but more and more trust. I wrote this down because I love it. Trust fuels this digital economy, trusted relationships. Is it true that the most important thing or a key to that is that the customer needs to feel like they're being communicated to as an individual and not as a one-to-many?
Yes. And it comes back to personalization. Again, we've talked about it already. And the interactive experiences, this new chapter of AI is going to allow us to have a one-to-one relationship, even though it might be one-to-many in how it's being built out. And that's what the large language models are trying to do, is build opportunity for us to integrate and all this data and engage those users more effectively. And so those personalized interactions have to be friendly, empathetic. They need to be listening for feedback. Is it the jeans that had a dye? What is the next step to redo that product so that the dye doesn't make those jeans shrink, so you can go back and sell? So listen to those customers for that long-term relationship, because if you're able to resend those jeans back out, they would be a happier customer. It's about consistency as well across the channels, so that we provide that high level of service, both in-store and online. And those playbooks that we had from before in marketing, trying to sell across, let's say, email, that playbook is out the door, right? It's not effective in today's digital, and as Solomon, you mentioned, in a multi-channel situation. So how you market to your customers is going to matter, and knowing exactly where they are and types of information they want you to communicate to them. And it does make investment across all these channels very important. Now, as we look to that level of multi-channel, what are you seeing, Solomon?
Yeah, what we're seeing in the best way to deliver all of this is orchestration of all three elements, right? Which is the personalization, which we discussed, omni-channel presentation, and managing the entire journey across the whole process, and giving the full, insightful, and holistic picture of your customer and their experience. And really, it just boils down to having the right message at the right time and at the right place. I gave you that example with the CMO. That's a bad example. A good example, or a happy case, is my own personal experience. Recently, I needed to get a quote for an EV charger install. And the company that I was using, of course, it's an online process, and they recognized the best way for me to have my experience is context switching. Context switching is really important because I may have started the process on one device, like my laptop, filling out a form. It's a lot easier with a keyboard. But then I need to take a photo halfway through the process. Now, I'm not going to take my laptop camera and spin it around, but they let me save my progress. It would send a communication out to my mobile device, and I could pick up where I left off, take a photo, upload it, and move it back and forth between each of the different touch points, which was an incredible experience, because before it's been a headache doing this with other services in the past. So this is really just the beginning in terms of where customers are trying to go and take us from optimizing all these different channels as well as these touch points, and now bringing in context switching, which is very, very important.
Yeah, in fact, we find that the different online first mentality has increased with Gen Z and with millennials. But to your point earlier about finding that EV, if you would have had a bad experience, we find that 1 out of 4 existing customers, even who might be loyal to a company or a business, will still walk away finding a better experience somewhere else. And it is about, you and the audience looking at your systems, looking at your tech stack, maybe taking those outdated systems that can't provide the channel switching, as Salman just mentioned, and embracing something like a cloud solution that can meet your scale of your customers and the needs and the wants they desire across data. And so as we look forward to the prediction that we see coming out, 70% of cloud platforms are going to embed Gen AI with the idea of managing that risk. So they're going to take compliance and regulations into account with how that data is being pulled in. And then they're going to look at prioritizing use cases that are going to help those who are risk averse to meet and listen to their customers better, extend other products and services. Maybe that EV charger has an additional adapter that will help you save money further. So how do you promote that? Because guess what? Marketing to that new customer is completely different than marketing to an existing customer. They need a customer portal. They have a loyalty or reward system. And that experience is different. And as we saw in the playbooks earlier, you have to think about all the channels. And you can watch that, and we can use AI to help us identify every stage of that journey that has an element of authenticity and of bringing to the organization a protected and brand awareness to the organizational relationship, that value to the customer. And so as we move forward, Janet, is this resonating as well from this prediction going forward?
It absolutely is. And I think that as we move into our 5th game changer, this is something that our audience, I think, will really get a lot out of in terms of actionable. What, as organizations are planning their CX, customer engagement strategies, what technology investment should they be thinking about within 2024 and beyond?
Yeah, so this is our end here. We're coming to the end. What we find when we speak to brands and companies about their business roadmap, and they're surfacing a lot of questions. How do we implement this? What does the tech stack look like? What level of investment do we make today versus sit and wait back and see how things are going to pan out? And you take the risk of losing in first mover advantages in your industry. We talked a little bit about that earlier. When most organizations are maybe sitting on the sidelines, waiting for technology to mature, a high percent of organizations are also planning to invest and move, even in small areas where you can improve that customer experience in a risk-protected way. You should consider that for 2024 and into 2025 because they recognize the value that technology brings to the business. Now, we produced a document around a digital business platform, and we looked at all the different capabilities that should be available to you to help you deliver on these experiences. First, this platform needs to be experience-led. It needs to take into account communications, the channels, the devices. It also needs to be intelligent. Even if it's just basic AI and automation or rules-based, that's better than nothing. And then we can move into Gen AI as a future for meeting those needs. But it also has to be modular so that you can integrate other systems to it, get the data in through maybe a CDP, and then be agile because we know we always will have additional things very specific to your business within that industry. So you need to be able to tailor it to fit your process. Because that's the other thing we see is that change management is one of the biggest hindrances to taking on new technology. So if you can find a system that can then allow you to meet your needs internally, the better adoption you'll have within the organization. And then it needs to be trusted. Take into account compliance, regulations in everything that you do through every part of that journey. And in the cloud, of course, because it's going to be able to scale as you grow and you can move with it. And as we looked at some survey data on where is Gen AI happening in prioritization, it comes in 3 areas. First, it's in analysis and summarization. That's a pretty quick one to see ROI value on. The content and types of communications that are going out, that could be around communication to a customer. It could be even a communication internally. And then a little further out is looking at code generation. How do you quickly deploy new apps that maybe an AI or a Gen AI based system would build for you, and you test it and make sure it's appropriate. Now, I would say don't sit back, right? We've estimated that the global AI market will reach $521 billion by 2027. And of that, $143 billion will be in Gen AI service and apps. That's quadrupling over the next 5 years. And this level of high investment is happening because there's such potential to move into these emerging technologies. And as we start to unlock the value of Gen AI, we're going to see improved productivity as well. Right? We estimate that it'll be $1 trillion in productivity gains. And we're already seeing close to 40 to 60% automation improvements just in the front office in marketing and customer service when you're looking at a chatbot sitting on top of a knowledge base. So there's lots of opportunity for these early adopters to take advantage of this, which is why we looked as our prediction at conversational interfaces that are going to be a top of mind change in the user experience. So we're not going to be necessarily typing on our mobile apps. We're going to be asking the questions. And that's going to take what Salman, you mentioned earlier around sentiment and tone and brand guidelines, making sure it's consistent within our organization and it's consistent with our customers and how we interact with them. Because as they start to fulfill their journey, all of those conversations can be aggregated and we can analyze them. Where do we need to go next? What do we need to invest in from a product? Because remember, as I said at the very beginning, customers are a revenue generator for you beyond just coming in as a new customer. But the loyalty, the ratings, the reviews, what they're sharing word of mouth also influences your brand loyalty and brand awareness. So IDC, we continue to look at customer experience as a way to maintain your business drivers and look at new emerging technologies like AI and Gen AI to help you with these strategic initiatives.
Thank you so much, Marcy. And I'd like to take this opportunity right now just to remind our audience as we pause before we wrap up to pose your questions. You can submit them through the Ask a Question function on your dashboard. We'll be reviewing them shortly. So these are 5 game changers that Marcy and Salman have provided that are incredibly insightful. I would love for you to summarize them for everybody.
Sure. Yeah. So the 5 areas we talked about in thinking about your strategic direction, your goals with your customers, the experience and engagement you want to have. First, look at their customers' success, their success with your products, handling all those returns, as Salman mentioned, tying the value of the experience back to the growth goals that you have. Look at new technologies emerging. You can do trials in the beginning and then roll it out to the rest of your organization, but put it to work for you. We do see this happening in different work streams across groups and with customers as they look to have more valuable interactions with you as an organization. And it's going to happen across multiple channels. We know that today. Are you ready to adopt it and answer their questions, answer that opportunity on the channel that they're looking for with personalization? Rich media is the name of the game today. So it's not just having text-based, it's actually visual. It's also taking into account accessibility and how we get access to those products and services and information in a way that is driving true value to the organization and the customer. And it does take investment. There's no doubt, right? We're moving out of legacy tools. We found that Over 51% of organizations still have legacy code, maybe it's something they custom built in your organization that needs to be updated. It needs to be modernized. You cannot take advantage of what's happening in AI and Gen AI if you don't have a platform that's going to support you going into the future. So I'll turn it back over to you, Solomon, for final thoughts.
Oh, yes. And just quickly then, what we place our big bets on, very similar to what you're seeing from a trend perspective, Marcy, is customer success and advocacy is really the new acquisition funnel for our customer base. And having true omni-channel. So removing that channel-specific optimization that we've seen and focusing on the holistic journey. And of course, AI. So getting that broader investment and not really looking at it like we have in the past with our other channels and initiatives in silos, really taking a more holistic approach and making AI a service offering that's going to be compliant, so you're not reinventing the wheel as you're going through all these different integration challenges that you just spoke of. And I'll pass it back to Janet.
Thank you so much, Solomon. And Marcy, I'd like to bring back a trend that you described during the last Game Changer about required investment, the trend of the platform for the digital business. That really resonated with me. OpenText Experience Cloud is actually a really great example of such a platform because it has all of the elements that you described. It's a platform that's experience-led, not just for customers, but for employees, for partners, for the supply chain. It's intelligent and can deliver analysis in actionable ways. It's modular. It has development tools that are agile, right? These are some of the key words that you raised. It emphasizes digital trust, which includes security, privacy, and compliance. And then finally, it supports cloud native and cloud delivery. So the OpenText Experience Cloud is a fully integrated and holistic composable portfolio that integrates all of the components that organizations need to drive customer success, experiences, media, communications, messaging, and data. And we do this for some of the world's biggest brands in one cohesive platform for the digital business. So I'm really glad that you raised that. So I'm really excited now to check on the Q&A. It is time. And I'm going to ask my colleague Greg, who's kind of monitoring it, what have we got in the queue?
Thanks, Janet. Yeah, some wonderful questions have come in, and I know we're a little short on time, so we will follow up with this event with the folks. And of course, if you have other specific questions, you can always reach out to us, but there'll be a follow-up afterwards. And Janet, when you conclude out later, maybe you'll give us a little bit more of a guidance on, what is that follow-up. But for right now, I see one question coming in, and they're fully agreeing with the silos. I'm paraphrasing. And there is a few kind of knock-on questions about that. One would be when you are looking to make these integrations, what's some best practices around? Is it just as simple as just API integrations, or and I'll start with you, Marcy. Maybe you can give us some a little bit more overview of tackling silos and the integration problems.
So yes, I mean, from a technology perspective, APIs are our way to get insights, data, signals into a system that we can then analyze. But I think the more important change, as you talk about integration, is the people change as well, because there's going to be change management, as I mentioned. Look, we don't like change. We don't like our processes. We put them in place and we're like, well, why do I need to rock the boat? The real value, though, that you can see when you do a business case to bringing it home to them is showing it. So put a POC in place with the technology and say, hey, we can take your process and we can make it 5 times faster for you. Wouldn't that be great? And once they see that value, their adoption to new technology will help them move the business forward. So yes, from a technology, it's APIs, it's bringing the integration and updating your processes. There's also the people side, because as I think I saw in the question, just looking real quick, The employee experience is definitely tied to the customer experience. And we do see that as a key indicator for the technology adoption. And so as you can make the process inside productivity high, you also can then find customers that are going to benefit from that as well. Janet or Salman, other comments?
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. I completely agree. And when you look at it from the API context, that's just the connectivity. So yeah, that's definitely a big gap. We're great at collecting data as customers. We have it all over the place. We're terrible at using it. So measuring something doesn't really make it grow taller is an adage I like to take. And then having the right tools. So you may be able to measure it and you know that we have some data, but I gave that CMO example. It's a digital bank. If you don't even have the resources, like you said, Marcy, to leverage the tools and put the process together to even have a business rule to say, oh, wait a minute, I can't send this communication out without checking if they have a mortgage first. Something so simple, but you need that backup to actually build the business logic around that. And that's where AI is going to come in to help you scale around that. So it's an amalgamation of things. The API is just the beginning, is more of the physical piece, but there's a whole other orchestration that goes along with it. And you need that thinking, the strategy behind it to execute.
Yeah, I'm going to add one other thing here, and then we go to the next question, which is we're seeing a growth in COEs, centers of excellence. And the center of excellence is looking across the entire organization and saying, where are these technology stacks, the cost? We might have to do some adjustments there. But where could AI help? Where could a process change help? Where could additional data insights help? To your point, we're not great at using it. And so having a center of excellence that can take that higher view and orchestrate people, process change, and the organizational goals and demands is kind of what you need to move forward in change management as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Marcy. This next question is kind of maybe a knock-on of what you were just saying. So, but I'll ask it. They're looking for cost savings so they can fund the innovation. They thought these 5 game changers was, wonderful, spot on. But any kind of tips on like how do you fund these? Like where do you kind of maybe get some of the cost savings so then you can address these innovations?
The easiest low-hanging fruit is to look at your DIY custom apps that your IT team is having to maintain day in, day out and fix themselves. So if you can find a way to leverage the cloud, do a quick update to an application, do a test and run it, we're seeing a lot of the legacy code that you might have sitting around in your organization is just a drain on your IT teams. And so going to a commercial application that can take on that managed service for you. I think Salman, you mentioned earlier around services, microservices, and bringing that together is going to be an easy one to take on to find the cost savings.
Yeah, and I'll just add on that when you're taking a look at cost savings, it should be considered that when we were speaking throughout this whole presentation about being channel specific, a lot of the investment's been best of breed. And the angle is now switching and evaluating best of suite. And the best of suite comes with a lot of the orchestration and the data analytics and the AI elements that we're talking about. And that is a big room for cost savings. And that will also implement a lot of the strategies that we're speaking to today. So that would be my feedback based on what I've been seeing in the field.
Thank you, Salman. I think at this time, Janet, we'll hand it back to you to do the final wrap up. And as I said, we still have some other questions in here, and we'll try to get back to you guys on some of the answers. And feel free to reach out to us as well.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Greg. And thank you to our audience for your great participation. And as Greg said, if we weren't able to get to your question, we will respond directly to all of them via email after the event. Please note that a replay of today's webinar will be available on demand shortly. And of course, we invite you to share it with your colleagues and other stakeholders. So please do that. I want to thank our speakers, Marcy and Salman today, but most of all to you, the audience, for joining us. This concludes our event. Thank you for joining us and have a great day.